Hey, welcome back to another episode. Well, I guess this might be the first episode because we changed the name a little bit. Last week, when you watched this, we were the baseball show with no name. Not a whole lot's changed. We just decided we wanted to talk about more than baseball. So now we're the sports show with no name. And our graphics department is, we don't have a lot of money, so we couldn't make a new title. I just had to cross it out. Don't worry about it. It's the sports show with no name. We're not fancy. We're a sports show. We have no name. How fancy do you really think we can be? Once again, I think you know who we are, right? Ben, that's Ben Bales. I'm Chad Bryan. Ben, what's going on, man?
Nothing much. It's a lot of people say time of year, March Madness.
Yeah, and the madness is it's seeping out into all kinds of different areas in sports. There's all kinds of crazy stuff going on right now.
Oh, definitely.
And we can get to it, I guess, maybe on another episode or whatever. We can talk about some of the crazy stuff that's happening because literally right now, there's a wild story from the NBA. There's a wild story from the NFL. There's a wild story from Major League Baseball. Pick a sport, right? It doesn't matter.
Right.
But what are we going to talk about? We want to talk about March Madness. Obviously, that's the name of this episode. If you clicked on it, you know that. So we have to talk about the tournament, right? Don't we?
We have to. We have to.
What anything unexpected for you? Listen, I had a couple 11 seeds moving on, but it wasn't NC State. I thought Oregon. Go ahead.
I have NC State in my Sweet 16, or actually, I think I have them in my Final Four.
Okay.
They're hot. They're playing some of the best basketball. They beat Duke and UNC in the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
And that was my big reason why to pick them to go far because,
Reasonable.
Sports, when you go on a run, when you get hot, anything is literally possible.
And especially when you're already a good group of athletes. When you start feeling yourself, you get a little confidence. Yeah, anything can happen. You're right. Anything can happen.
Confidence is, a lot of people say adrenaline is crazy, but when you have like that uncanny like confidence, like, hey, I can go out there and do whatever I want and it's going to work. That's more scary than having adrenaline.
I think that's the way you should feel as an athlete. I think some people blur the lines a little bit and think that's cocky or that's, arrogant or whatever. But I would imagine, if you took a poll of, whoever you could name to be the 1,000 most successful athletes of all time in the history of sports, I bet all 1,000 of them, when it really boils down to it, they all felt that way. They all felt like, hey, listen, you have to get me out or you got to block my shot or you got to whatever, right? Like,
yep.
Good luck, man. That's how you're supposed to feel as an athlete. You got to go get it done.
Yep.
I have no problem with that. I don't mind when the emotions come out a little bit, like guys like Ronald Acuna Jr., like, maybe a little more of an adamant display after he hits a home run, upsets some of the fossils in the game, like Don Madden, whatever. It doesn't matter. The Marlins have hit him 77 times with a pitch, but I just don't think that's a thing to get upset about. Like I was a pitcher. I pitched, Ben, I grew up in the 80s, 90s, man. I pitched in the time of like, the unwritten rules and the send a message and don't let that guy do this or whatever. I never cared about a guy, pimping a home run or flipping his bat or I don't care about that.
Dude, I thought it was cool. I used to like to watch it.
That's on me to throw a better pitch, right? Like,
yeah,
you don't want to give up a home run and watch a guy celebrate. Throw a better pitch, right? Like it's that
like
simple.
I was a catcher. If a guy hit a home run, I'm like, that's on me. Like I called a terrible pitch. Like, I should have to watch him, pimp a home run.
What's your job as a hitter? Your job is to make the scoreboard change, right? Like you're trying to get on base and make the score. You hit a 3-run home run, especially in a big spot in the game. Like, are you not allowed to be happy about it? I can strike you out and I can pump my fist. I can throw my glove down. I can do whatever. I can do that. But watch a home run fly off your bat. Now we have a problem. I'm supposed to hit you with the pitch the next time you come. Come on, man. That's kind of soft to me.
I agree. One guy I want to talk about though is Jack Golke. Did you see the guy for Oakland?
No,
dude. So this year he's attempted 300.
Yes, I'm sorry, Oakland.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry.
Yeah, dude. The fact that he's only attempted 8 2-pointers all year that's absurd.
Wild.
Like, talk about having like the green light whenever you want.
Yeah. I saw his shot chart. It was hilarious. I've never seen anything like that in my life. It was hilarious,
dude. And his 2-pointers weren't like deep twos too. They were all layups. He had like one that was like right outside the 3-point line.
Right. It reminded me of like when I played video games as a kid and I didn't know how to get to a certain part of the board. So I would just like do
Yeah.
whatever from really fun. Like that's what it looked like. It's like he just didn't know how to get inside the 3-point line. So he just was chucking them
Right.
up. He had no idea. That was hilarious to me.
But
That's really funny.
dude, and I
All
mean,
the have you seen all the memes, by the way, that they've made with him?
yeah,
Like, oh man, it's funny. It's really funny. Apparently he's got a
it,
really good sense of humor about it all too. So that's fun.
I mean it, and I think I forget what company it was, but they capitalized on it perfectly because like the day after his game, he already had an NIL deal with a company.
There you go. Hey, you gotta
And
be
it's
quick
like,
in this day and age, right? Things move so fast. I mean, thanks to social media, things just move so fast.
Yep.
By the way, speaking of moving fast, my bracket, we were talking about Oakland. Wow. I had Kentucky in my Final Four. It happened to me
I did
again. It
too.
wasn't a 1 seed this year, but yeah, I had my one of my Final Four teams go down in the first round. That's never comfortable.
I almost picked against Kentucky, but I'm like, there's no way that like 2 years in a row they lose to a 15 seed and a 13 seed. I was like, there's no way it
Yeah.
happens, right? And then sure
Wow.
enough, it happens. And I was like, dude,
Yeah.
like
Big
like
Blue
I said,
Nation, not happy.
but like we talked about off the show though, you look at
Yeah.
Oakland's roster. It's four seniors and a graduate.
Yeah. Yep.
Like,
Yep.
so,
There is something to be said for knowing where a guy is going to be on the floor after playing with him for 4 or 5 years in the same system, in the same offense, man. There's just, I mean, it helps. I mean, you can see it on the floor. It helps.
You can. And it, like, you know, I said, you know, we were talking about this off the show, but like, you know, you talk about all these one and done guys and it's like, how long does it truly take a coach to implement a system? Like, you know, you look at these guys that have been there at these smaller schools, you know, for 3, 4, 5 years. And like you said, it's like they could close their eyes and pass it to a guy and they know he's going to be there.
Yep. And you even start to pick up on your teammates' body language, right? Like, you know, when you have to step up for a guy because you can see when he just doesn't have it, right?
Yep.
It's not that, you know, I'm not talking about having negative body language. I just mean like, hey, look, man, like this is our leading scorer. He's 1 for 11. I can see in his eyes it's not there today. Like, we have to step up. But you can start. I think you can pick up on that sooner. You know, as a team that's played together for 4 or 5 years, like you know right away. You might know in warmups. You know.
Yep.
And yeah, I think there's an advantage for sure to that.
For sure. And like, you know, you look at like NC State, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I haven't looked at their roster, but I think they have a bunch of older guys, and they go into the ACC tournament. They ended the season they went 4-10 in their last 14 games.
Yeah.
And then had to play 5 games in 5 days, including 2 of those games being against UNC, who's a 1 seed, and Duke, who's I think a 4 seed.
Yeah.
And you upset both of them, and you go on to win the SEC tournament.
Hey, take the hot hand, right? Yeah. You said you had him in your Sweet 16, correct?
I think so. I might have him further, but I know for sure I have him as my Sweet 16 team this year.
Yeah, I had a couple of teams moving on to the Sweet 16 that would have been a surprise. I thought for some reason it felt like Akron was going to kind of flip the switch and get hot right there, and I had them, you know, winning in that against Creighton in that first round in an upset, and moving on to the Sweet 16. Obviously, I was wrong there. But you know, a couple of 11s. I did have Duquesne winning in the first round. I had Oregon winning. I thought Oregon was another team that got really hot right at the end of the season conference tournament. They kind of turned up the heat a little bit. I thought, hey, you can win a couple games.
Dude,
here. You know?
That triple overtime game against Creighton, that was
wild. That was absolutely wild.
Dude,
I mean, it's been a fun tournament.
It has been. I mean, you know, like we said, you know, you date back to some of the recent years, you know, let's just, I mean, you know, I'll give one, you give one. My favorite March Madness run ever was the St. Peter's Peacocks from a couple of years ago. Made all the way to the Elite Eight. That's, I mean, like that's one of my favorite teams ever, you know, because just the way they played, the way they carried themselves, it was, you know, I read an interview with their coach, and he's like, you know, we're gonna enjoy this. He's like, but we got business to do. He's like, we didn't come here to only play you know, one game and lose in the second game. He's like, we came here to win it all. And it's like to say you're one of the best 8 teams in the world that year as a 15 seed. It's like, I mean, your coach wasn't wrong. And
it looked for a minute like they might get it done too. I mean, they were playing really, really well.
They were. What's your favorite March Madness run?
I don't know. That's a really tough call. I mean, you know, we talked about the Gulf Coast one, just all the dunks all over. I mean, they were so much fun to watch.
Yeah, they were.
I don't know what Florida Gulf Coast. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it would probably be that one because they were so unexpected. There was a year when George Mason came out of nowhere, and I
remember that year. Yeah,
yeah, they went to like the Elite Eight. Remember?
Yep.
Did they even sneak? They didn't sneak into the Final Four that year, did they?
I don't think so. I think
they went really far. I can't remember who they lost to. That was a fun one.
What about little March Madness trivia for you?
Okay.
For everybody. If you know
Fair
the
enough.
answer, Chad, you can answer it, but this isn't my trivia question. What
Okay.
is the only team to go from the first four to the final four?
Mm.
Throw it out there. Do you know the answer or no?
I don't know the answer. No.
VCU 2011.
What? Okay,
Shaka
Virginia
Smart.
Commonwealth. Okay. Okay.
Shaka Smart, who's now at Marquette.
Yeah.
Took
Okay.
VCU
All
all the way
right.
to the final four.
All right.
That's I think they're the only team to go from the first four to the final four.
I would think that's probably correct. Wouldn't?
Okay.
Yeah. I
And
would think that's right.
you know, I want your opinion on this, because I've heard rumors of it. Should they expand the tournament or get rid of automatic bids? What's your take on that? Because I've heard takes on both.
I can tell you. Listen, I wouldn't want to be on Greg Sankey's side of it today. Amazing. The SEC commissioner, right, says, "Hey, we gotta get rid of all the automatic bids. You can't just win your conference to come in here and compete with the big boys, right? Like you can't do that." And then the SEC immediately went 1-5 in games where they were the favorite in all of them, right? And presumably, you would think most of those games, or not most of them, but a couple of them were probably against teams with automatic bids, right? Oakland for sure, you know. Yeah, hilarious how quickly that backfired. And I'm sure every coach was like, I'm sure when he said that, every coach was calling the league office like, what are you doing? Why would you why say this? Why not wait until after the tournament? Like, bring this up in April, man. Not like 5 days before the tournament starts, please. Yeah, terrible timing. I mean, just awful timing on that. I mean, Sankey says it and it's like he spoke it into existence. Like the SEC went poof, you know what I mean? It was awesome. So no, don't get rid of the more teams. Give me more teams.
No,
give me more. Give me another. I don't care how many more teams. It doesn't matter if you put everybody in. I think it would be fun. Put everybody in the tournament. It would be a blast.
Right? And you know, like I told my dad, I said, you know, if you get rid of, you know, the automatic bids, it's just like regular season conference games. You're gonna have 20 SEC teams, 20 Big Ten teams, couple ACC teams, couple SEC teams. Like, you're not gonna have any of these mid majors that make these runs, you know, every year, and it's not going to make March Madness as fun. It's going to be like, oh, well, Duke's winning it all this year.
Yeah, no, I want listen, forget Oakland. I want the team that finished fourth in that conference in the tournament, right? Like, I want them in, bring them in, put them in. I don't care.
See,
maybe not that extreme, but
you know, I was brainstorming. What if you did March Madness as like a group play style tournament, and then you went into like single elimination?
Yeah, okay.
Like,
or listen, just cut the country right into 4 regions, right? And if you fall into those regions, I don't care about seeding and home, whatever. I don't care about that. If you fall into that region, that's where you play, right? And when you come out, 16 teams come out of that region. There's 4 sub-regions or whatever, right? And your top 4 in each sub-region comes out, and that's it. That's the 64 teams. Like, you could still have a field of 64 for all the traditionalists. We don't have to, you know, how do we get from 328 down? We don't forget it. You know what I mean? Like, don't worry about all the math. We'll just bring up all the teams, and then when there are 64 to go, that's when the tournament starts. What's wrong with that?
Dude, I mean, hey, let's call the NCAA. We'll
let's
be
call
the pitch to be the new. Well,
where's the phone? I don't have a phone up here. I need to get somebody on the horn right now. Yeah.
Hello?
I like that.
NCAA? Hello?
They won't listen to you. They know.
No,
it's
probably
a recruiting violation against your school now.
Dang
yeah,
it.
I don't know. I think that's
Sorry
a great
about
idea.
guys.
I think that would be a lot of fun, though. Don't you?
No,
like,
or like I said, even like a group style, like you know, if you take 64 and divide it by 4, right? That's 16 groups of 4, right?
Yeah.
Then you could do, and instead of having the round of 64, you instantly go to the round of 32. Top 2 teams advance. You seed them. You could do it like they do in the World Cup.
Or you just bring in 128 teams in the top 2 advance, and then you have a field of 64. You still have your everything for the traditionalists is fine.
Or you could do that.
Yeah.
And I think you should do it like the World Cup does it, where the runner up of this group faces the winner of this group. The runner up of this group faces the winner of this group.
Yeah.
Because
I have no problem with any of that at all.
You know, one of the better teams might have, you know, a couple off games, and you could have that shocker team that wins their tournament or wins their group. And then
that's why I love the idea
Kentucky
of the whole thing like a single elimination. That's why I do like the single elimination, because, like, man, it's like if you get cold, that's it, you're done. You know, and that's wild. I love that. Hey, it's okay.
But I mean, So my trivia question.
Okay,
I'm gonna throw mine out there now. I'm gonna throw two at you. First one is where'd it go? I lost it.
Oh. Wait, is this for me to answer?
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
Which team was the last team to go undefeated throughout the regular season and March Madness?
1976 Indiana?
Yeah.
Was that it?
Yeah, they went 32-0.
Okay.
Last team to ever complete a perfect season.
Bobby Knight back in the day, man.
Do you know?
I couldn't remember the year. I knew it was Indiana, but I couldn't remember the year. I wasn't sure on the year.
Do you remember the only college?
I have a great Bobby Knight story, but I'll have to tell you when we're not recording. It's not appropriate for people under 18. I met him personally, and I got to experience the full. Well, I'll tell you that.
I've heard some of the stories. So which college is the only school to have back-to-back undefeated seasons?
Back-to-back undefeated seasons. It's got to be UCLA.
Yeah, 72, 70. I think 72, 73.
Yeah,
so
man.
Before Bobby Knight.
Wow, that's
it was before Bobby Knight, but they didn't win the tournament though. I think they only won the tournament one of those years.
Yeah. Who did they lose to? Oh, I know this. I don't know this. I can't think of it offhand. I'm not going to make you.
Do you remember when the NCAA banned dunking because of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
Yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Have you heard of that story?
Yes. And speaking of dunking and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, have you seen the video from like the first dunk contest in the NBA?
I might have. It rings a bell, but
it's absolutely miserable.
Yeah,
like it's devolved a little bit into what it is today, but it definitely evolved for a while from what it was from day one. Like,
yeah, dude.
I'm not saying it's not at the pinnacle of its game anymore. The dunk contest to me isn't what it used to be. But wow,
dude, that 2016 Zach LaVine versus Aaron Gordon dunk contest, that was probably dude. That I remember sitting in my bedroom watching that, dude. I'm like, dude, it can't get. I was like, there's no way it gets worse than this, right? And then it's just straight downhill.
Yeah, to me, and it's tough to me. I grew up watching, Michael Jordan go up against Dominique Wilkins and Spud Webb at like 5'7"
dude,
out there.
Spud Webb.
Yeah,
that's my guy. That's my guy.
Awesome spectacle back in the day, man. D Brown, with the covered his eyes or whatever, and then Cedric Sabalas with the blind. Everybody knows Cedric Sabalas could see, man. That dude wasn't running 60 feet across the court, right? And then he was gonna bang his head on the come on, we weren't gonna do that. But yeah, those are the dunk contests I grew up with, So,
you don't think that's a smart idea?
No, I don't think so. We didn't know as much back then about concussions, so maybe it was blindfold. I have no idea, but whatever. Listen, real quick, let's get to some March Madness. We'll just we don't have to make our picks for the rest of the tournament, but real quick, we'll go through just some of these matchups. One that I'm intrigued by is UConn, the 1 seed. Is UConn the 1 overall or the overall 1, right?
Yeah, they're the overall 1 seed.
I thought so. And San Diego State. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I have San Diego State tabbed as a pretty athletic, pretty solid basketball team, but I like UConn in this, don't you?
I like UConn. I don't think obviously it's not the same San Diego State team as last year. They made all the way to the Final Four.
Yeah.
But this also isn't the same UConn team that, won it all last year. But this UConn team is literally blowing everybody out of the water, and it's not close.
No.
I came into this tournament, people kept asking me, who's winning March Madness this year? And I kept saying UConn. And people were like, dude, you're crazy. There's no way they go back-to-back. As the tournament goes on, their coach literally said it after their second game. He goes, let's keep on going out there and keep blowing these teams out of the water and showing teams that we have no sign of slowing down. He goes, I don't care if we're up 30. He goes, we're going to be up by 40. He goes,
there's nothing wrong with that. Don't take your foot off the gas. There's too much at stake. Yeah.
He's like, I don't care if we get a bad rep. He goes, I'm here to win.
Yeah.
And
I'm looking at the side of the bracket where I had James Madison beating Duke in the second round. That didn't happen. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, a lot of people did do. James Madison was hot. Like I said, they
They were on
a 14-game win streak to end the season.
And listen, I don't care who you play. 31-3 is unbelievable.
Oh, dude,
don't care who you play. That's a good team.
Yeah. I'll tell you, my one bracket on my app, I'm in the top 95.6%.
Okay.
But my Sweet 16 is UConn, Iowa State, UNC, Arizona, Duke, North Carolina. I had McNeese State here. That didn't happen.
North Carolina looks like another team too. I mean, North Carolina is really shutting everybody down. I mean, I know they've only played Wagner and a 9 seed in Michigan State, but they've looked good all year too. I think it's tough for me to see them on the same side of the bracket. UNC and UConn. But
what I told my dad is, but it's Tom Izzo. Was that 9 seed? Can't bet against Tom Izzo in March.
Nope.
And so my Sweet 16. And I have NC State. I have NC State making my Final Four.
Okay.
So I have them beating Duke. I have them beating Marquette and then beating Duke in the Elite Eight.
Well, listen, if you're going to get hot, and the ACC is the right conference to show that, like, hey, we can compete on a national level, right? Like it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Marquette's tough. Marquette's really, really good. Do you think they can beat Marquette? I mean, Colorado played Marquette tough. I don't know. We'll see.
Do you think now? This is really the first real challenge Purdue's had. Do you think Gonzaga can upset Purdue?
Yes, I do. I do. I know Purdue just put 106 or whatever it was on Utah State. But yeah, I think Gonzaga can beat Purdue. I don't think. I think you get like this Jekyll and Hyde thing with Purdue, right? I really honestly think the last couple of years in the first round, especially obviously the first round exits. I mean, the kind of embarrassing first round exits for Purdue. I think they were just they got put into a gym that they weren't comfortable in. For whatever reason, I brought this up. I think I've talked to you about it. You see this in March Madness, a team that comes in, as a 35% from the 3-point line team, they'll come in and shoot 4 for 39 or something, right, in a game. And you're like, what happened to them? It's jitters, it's the nerves, it's this, it's that. No, it's the backdrop. I mean, sometimes when you change a shooter's backdrop, you're used to a really small confined gym, right? And then you come into a football stadium, basically, right? Or you're in a big arena where that depth perception goes away because, I mean, all of a sudden there's just blackness behind the rim. It's tough to shoot. I don't think people realize that's part of the game, but it can look completely different. It can look like the rim is 100 feet away from you, right?
Yep. And
that makes a difference. So maybe Purdue, I don't know where they play these games at. I'll have to check. I don't know that it says on my bracket here.
Let's find out.
Somewhere in the Midwest, we know they'll have relatively, close to not home court advantage, but they'll be in their region, obviously. I don't know where they play, but it's good. I think it can make a difference for Purdue. I don't know. We'll see.
Little Caesars Arena in Detroit.
Oh, okay. I have no idea. I don't.
American Airlines Center in Dallas is for the South. TD Gardens in Boston is for the East. Detroit is Midwest, and and Crypto.com Arena is, Detroit is Midwest, and then Crypto.com Arena is West.
Okay, so listen, I don't know which way it's going to go, but take a look. I mean, if you see a team come out and they start off, maybe they were hot in the second, maybe they just put 106 on Utah State, and they start off, 3 of 20 from the field or something, or 1 of 9 from 3-point range. I mean, maybe you'll know why. Maybe that's a thing. And, I think it's a thing. I definitely think it's a thing.
Oh, it definitely is. I was going to touch on that. I'm going to throw some high school basketball in there. Brunswick played St. Ignatius in, the high school March Madness tournament.
Yeah.
And
regional finals or semifinals?
Regional finals.
Regional finals. Okay.
So they'd played Ignatius earlier in the year at Baldwin Wallace, and they got absolutely smacked.
Yeah.
They lost by 20 something, right?
Okay.
And if any of these basketball players end up clicking on that, I'm not saying that to offend you guys or anything like that, but but then you fast forward to the regional final, right? They lose by 3 to St. Ignatius. Nobody had them in that game at all that I talked to. Nobody had them in it, and they came out and they looked like a completely different shooting team. And it's you could tell that they wanted the rematch against Ignatius because they're like, hey, we know we can beat these guys, and they gave it one heck of a shot. And again, if any of you guys are watching this, it was a blast to watch you guys in that game. I thought you guys had it. I don't want to get into it, but it was an incredible game. But like you said, depth perception is true. I mean, it's
I think it makes a difference.
It's crazy how. But that's what makes great shooters elite, though. You can shoot anywhere.
Yep. Yeah, it's just you in the rim. Really, at the end of the day, you got to be able to tune all that out.
And talking about Purdue, and their system. You mentioned it for a quick second, and their first round exits. Last year, when Purdue lost to FDU, Zach Edey didn't touch the ball in the final 9.5 minutes of the game. You have the best player in the country, and he doesn't touch the ball for the final 9.5 minutes.
It's not like you can't get it to him. He's 7'4". There's no excuse for that.
Yeah, and you're telling me that FDU has better inside defenders than Zach Edey is an offensive interior
Wasn't the
player?
tallest guy on
No.
their roster like 6'9"?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're telling me that he's able to guard Zach Edey inside, and you can't get him the ball.
I don't think there's a reason that should have happened. I don't understand it.
Like
but,
what
yeah.
Zach Edey's done these first 2 games in this year is
Yeah.
what should have happened to FDU. They should have gotten absolutely smacked.
Do you think Purdue finally came out with a little bit of like, maybe a little angry, like, hey, let's go
Yes,
prove
I
something?
do.
Like,
Because
it looks like
because like my
it
dad
looks like
said,
they're playing on a different level.
like my dad said, their entire their starting 5 is 3 sophomores, Zach Edey a senior, and then a junior. So
Yeah.
those 3 sophomores were there last year when they lost FDU. So
Yep.
was the junior, and so was Zach Edey. So the
Yep.
last memory you have of March Madness is getting upset by a 16 seed. I wouldn't want that taste in my mouth, would you?
No.
And
No.
like people are saying, "Oh, Purdue can't win it all." Purdue can't do this. Purdue, and like you said, I think they're coming out trying to prove it. Like, hey, we can win it all. Like we're here to destroy everybody.
They're showing me something. They're about to make me hit maybe I'll start hitting the boiler up thing on my, on my stream deck again. I might boiler up with them again if they get to the Elite 8, Final 4. You never know, man.
I mean,
I was telling them pretty hard last year going into the March Madness. I'm just into the first round. I thought Purdue's a Final 4 team. They're a championship game team. They're going to win. They're going to win it all, and then they lost to a 16. Man, it's wild.
And I want to,
but it happens. I mean,
and I want to, mention some, one more thing before we move on. It was early in the year, but Purdue beat Gonzaga at Gonzaga.
Yeah.
And, obviously, it was like, Gonzaga's not the same team they normally are.
Yeah.
But Gonzaga is now a 5 seed. They're playing some of the best basketball they've played all year.
Yeah.
And you can't count out Mark Flew. I mean, he's made it to 9 straight Sweet 16s or whatever it is.
Yeah. I mean,
like he doesn't have the best talent in the world, but guess what he has this year? Starting roster. 4 juniors and a graduate senior.
Experience. We talked about it. Not that Purdue doesn't have some experience on that roster and in that starting lineup, but we'll see. I mean, we'll see if that makes a difference. I mean, guys, and sometimes listen, that makes adversity a little bit easier to deal with, right? When you've been through it before with those guys and you know how everybody responds and you can respond in kind, you know what to do. I do think that makes a difference. We talked about it. I think that makes a big difference.
Definitely think it does.
For me, March Madness is all about depth perception and experience. Apparently, that's all it comes down to.
So,
wait. Let me get to my trivia question for you before we do move on. And I bet you I know what we're going to talk about next. I bet you I know.
We might.
I have about you $4.5 million. I know what it is. But listen, before we get to that, which state? Okay, not which team. Which state leads all time? Okay. In championships, NCAA tournament championships, and just try to take a guess on how many that state has.
I'm gonna guess California.
Okay, you are correct. I should say you're correct.
UCLA alone's won like 12, right, or 11 or something.
I felt like it was. It was between 2 easy ones. This was the hardest of the easy. The other one was by far simple.
But I'm gonna go with in total.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go with 20.
I thought you were going to say 21. It's 15. 15. They have 15 titles in the state of California.
UCLA has what, 11 of them?
Most of them. I'm not
10
sure
straight.
I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but I know it's UCLA is clearly the boss of that.
UCLA won 10 straight for how many?
It's unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable what they were able to accomplish.
That's just crazy though. You think about that. That's 10 years, right? That's 2 whole recruiting classes that stay from their freshman year to their senior year. Another whole recruiting class that's freshman to senior year, and another recruiting class that's their freshman to sophomore year. Like that is, you'll never see that ever. Yeah, you'll never see that ever again, ever.
Oh no, ever. No, never. Not even at the Division III level. No, you'll never see.
No,
that's why
you won't, because
there's too much parity.
Yeah, if a team's winning that much, right? Those players are going to want to go D2, D1, because if you're winning that much, clearly it's too easy.
Ah, man, yeah.
Like,
you question how Mount Union was able to keep that up for so long, in football, what they did, and Wisconsin Whitewater, kind of the same thing. I mean, it's just those teams that are always there. Marietta in baseball,
I've heard they're good.
Oh, it's just insane.
I want to mention one last thing before we, move on to, do you hear about Oakland's coach? 40 years at Oakland.
That's wild. That's insane.
How do you?
That's what you get though at these mid majors. You get these people that are so invested in the culture, in the school, and the everything, right? Like They
Like,
live
I don't
on
know if you saw,
campus sometimes. I mean, it's
yeah.
amazing.
Do you see the picture of him after he beat Kentucky?
No,
He was sitting in his coach's seat for like 2 hours after the game, just soaking it all in
man, good on him. Good on him.
because they were the last team, and he asked if they could keep the lights on. He sat there and just soaked it all in for like 2 hours.
Hey, man, nothing wrong with that. Remember it, enjoy it. He's gonna
Yep.
retire soon. Obviously, like, he's not gonna coach forever.
I mean, but no, but everybody's gonna remember him at Oakland for
Yeah.
the coach that upset Kentucky in the first round.
Stuff like this helps recruiting. You think there's not a
Oh.
guy that's going to go to Michigan State now, right? Who's like maybe on the bubble, like, okay, well, do I play at Michigan State? I go to Oakland. You know what I mean? Like,
Right?
go to Oakland and play. Like, why not?
Oh, I mean, I know I said last thing, but I wanted to mention this to you. We
Okay.
talked about recruiting, right?
Mhm.
We talked about all these mid majors, and these guys staying, and we talked about implementing a rule, where you have to stay 2 or 3 years, right?
Yeah.
So, like you said, I don't know if you make it 3 years, but I also think if you did make it 3 years, it could make March Madness a whole lot more March Madness.
Yeah.
Because you'd have all these 5 stars, like you said, going to mid majors that they're like, okay, do I go to Kentucky and sit for 2-3 years, or do I go to, Louisville and maybe play right away?
West Virginia. I mean, these teams that are close, that are on the cusp, that just are 1 5-star guy away, but can't ever get the 5 stars because they all pile into Kansas and Kentucky and Duke and
Like,
yeah,
if you wanted to, make it better, what would you do? Would you make it 2 years, maybe 3 years? Like, what would you?
I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to tell kids what to do with their lives. I like the idea of 3 years because I like the idea of getting some continuity in there. I don't know a lot of guys that really come out all that physically ready out of high school or out of 1
I
year,
agree. I
out of
agree.
high school. So I think for the physicals, I mean, it seems like a lot of these guys that come out early, the one and done guys they're I don't want to say they're injury prone, but they have issues with, it's a physical game. And at 19, 20 years old, maybe you're not quite ready to go up against, guys in their mid to late 20s. I don't know. We'll see.
No, I agree with you. And like you said, perfect example is Maurice Claret from running back from Ohio State.
Yeah.
Left as a sophomore. You're not fully developed until you're like 24, 25.
Yeah.
And you're leaving when you're 18, 19, 20.
Yeah.
Like, some guys struggle for, the first 4 or 5 years in the league, and then they explode.
Right.
Because they're not fully developed yet. And once they become fully developed, they turn into the player that you saw in college.
Exactly.
And,
Yeah.
And it's,
I feel for Claret. He could have been one of the all-time greats, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he had instincts for football that I've never even seen, like, it was amazing.
Yeah. Like, I've seen his highlight tapes at Ohio State, dude. Like you said, he had potential to be one of the best ever. He just left early.
And he had injury problems. I mean, he had like shoulder stingers left and right. I remember watching that season. I watched that entire season. I'm an Iowa State fan, He was always coming out of the game early, sitting out 5 or 10 plays with a stinger and then going back in there and he'd rip off like a 35-yard touchdown run. I mean, it was unbelievable. Like, the guy was unreal, just an unreal physical specimen. And by the way, he's on I follow him on social media. He's like 100% turned his life around. Everything he does is positive. Everything he does is for other people. Just an amazing human being, man. Really proud of the way he's turned everything around and turned that into something positive and made something. It's awesome to see.
Yep.
I like that. So shout out to Maurice Claret, right? Unexpected on the show today.
Right.
Speaking of shout outs, we gotta maybe move on to a story where nobody's really giving anybody shout outs.
No.
If anything, it's a little hush hush. What's going on with Shohei Ohtani, man? What happened here? What is this?
So, from my understanding, is that, well, let's just start. Obviously, Shohei signed a $700 million contract with the Dodgers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a clause in there that if the Dodgers fired his translator, Ippei, how do you pronounce his last name?
Mitsuhara. But I actually heard, I did some reading. He wasn't one of the people listed. He was not one of the executives and one of the people listed. So
yeah,
that was a misconception. I don't know how that happened, but yeah, that was out. But that was being reported everywhere.
Yeah, that's reported. Like, I first saw it and I'm like, I saw that. And I'm like, well, Ohtani's no longer a Dodger.
Yeah, that's it.
Like,
that's it.
Running's back
over to Atlanta, right?
Right. Like, but then like I said, like, I read into it and I read the names and I was like, okay, like I know it was like the GM. If the GM gets fired, Shohei can opt out, stuff like that. Like, all the big name guys. But then you
Yeah.
see that, you know, then you see that it says, oh, Ipe took $4.5 million from Otani to replay gambling debts. And you're like, okay, so Otani's a big gambler. He's trying to cover up for his friend. But then the report comes out that Ipe was paying off his own gambling debts. So
Mm.
it's like, who do you trust? What sources do we trust? Where's it coming from? Because this thing got thrown out of left field. So
Yeah.
Ronald Acuna just threw us a curveball from right field. Like, what
Right.
is going on?
I mean, the story came out of nowhere, out of nowhere. And on top of all that, on top of all the misdirection and the why did they change their stories so many times? Like,
I
is there a legal strategy there, or was that just like fumbling the
I
bag over and over again?
I think, well, obviously, I think it's a legal strategy because if it is Shohei betting, that's illegal.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get suspended.
Yeah.
He's going to get the P Rose treatment, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know
mean,
if this is Ipe trying to cover up for Otani, saying, "Hey, is my gambling debt? I'm paying off my gambling debt," but
yeah.
they're going to investigate it.
Oh,
So
yeah,
if it's
for
Otani,
sure.
either way, if it's Otani, it's gonna get found out.
Yeah, and you
Unless they,
heard how this all came up in the first place, right? Like why
I
Otani's even
think
on the
so.
radar now, right?
I think so. Maybe.
Yeah, the FBI was investigating a guy by the name of Michael. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right. Michael Boyer, uh, a guy out of Florida who was apparently known by federal agents to be an illegal bookmaker. So while they're watching his business and his accounts and investigating whatever he's got going on, suddenly $4.5 million in a wire transfer pops up from none other than Shohei Otani. And, this is hard for me because all the changed stories and all well, here's what happened. No. Here's what happened. Actually, when we said that was what happened, what we meant was this was what happened. And now, it's like it got crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's hard for me to think that like where there's all this smoke, there's no fire. I think we're going to find out pretty soon that Shohei Otani speaks a lot more English than we all think he does. Maybe not. I don't know. Did you watch any of the press conference yesterday by chance?
I heard bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
I never really got the chance to sit down and watch it all. I'm going to eventually.
Yeah. My son, it was
especially-
amazing. I took my kids somewhere and I was trying to watch it while my daughter was doing something else, and it was amazing. Like Shohei would go, and he spoke in Japanese entirely. So he would say something in Japanese, and then right when not Mitsuhara, but when the new interpreter, whoever that was, I don't know the guy's name, when the new interpreter for that press conference would start to translate it to English, it was like my son would start talking. So I missed everything in English. I caught it all in Japanese. So I
you don't know what he said?
Nothing. No, I didn't. I didn't catch a whole lot of Japanese there. I know how to count. I can count in Japanese, and I know some karate. I know some martial arts terms, but that's about it. Yeah, I didn't catch a whole lot of it, to be honest with you. But yeah, I was trying to see basically the gist of it was. He said he's never bet on any sports, especially baseball. This was all a surprise. He's shocked. He's saddened. Mitsuhara was almost a lifelong friend, a career-long friend. Anyway, for a guy, and Mitsuhara, I think we're going to learn more about him. I have opinions on him. Maybe it's not fair, but listen. First of all, the guy says on his resume or in his bio or whatever that he graduated from UC Riverside. I saw this, yeah. You saw that? UC Riverside's like, no, he didn't. He didn't go to school here,
Yeah, never had.
He grew up like 15 minutes away from the Angel Stadium, which is cool that he ended up with Shohei back. And, that was complete coincidence. That's not anything nefarious. But I will say this. I wanted to do some research. I knew, obviously, this is going to be talked about on every show I'm on now. For the next who knows how long, but at least this week, right? So I'm trying to read as many things as I can, and I'm trying to watch and listen and just do all the due diligence, right? So I watched a couple of interviews with Mitsuhara, and he just, how like when you look at people sometimes they just look like they're not there. There was a particular interview where it should have been like a really fun interview for a guy who grew up in America, knows English, he can understand, like,
I think I saw this one. I think I saw this
one. It was with one of the Angels announcers. It was in the dugout. They were sitting in the dugout. And the whole time, like, you read body language, right? And the whole time, Mitsuhara is answering questions. And he never looks at the camera. He never looks at the interviewer. I mean, he's like, he's looking out on the field. And it's like at all times, he's trying to find Shohei. Like, I don't know what he was looking for out there. I'm not sure what he was doing, but he just looks like he's not there, right? Like he looks like he's very preoccupied by something in his mind. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe Who knows? It could have
I
been
mean,
anything. Maybe he's having problems at home. I don't know. I have no idea, but it looked odd to me.
and I, like you said, like I watch, some things, trying to get, an understanding of, the whole situation, because I don't want to fly into this blind, because if you do, that's how you get
Yeah,
in trouble, and stuff
yeah,
like that. And I don't
yeah.
know if you've ever seen the Foul Territory podcast with Eric Kratz and AJ Pierzynski.
No, I mean I've heard bits and pieces of it, but yeah.
So Eric Kratz was talking about, used to play in the big leagues, catcher.
Mhm.
He was talking about how he had a teammate who didn't own anything. The apartment was provided by his team, as they do.
Yeah.
He got a free car from like a sponsorship deal that the team set up with him, so he didn't have to pay for his apartment, didn't have to pay for his car. Eric Kratz said he was making 15 to 20 million a year, and Eric Kratz is like, so who takes care of your money? He's like, oh, my brother. He goes, I don't touch it. I don't look at it. He's like, so you don't care what happens to your money? He's like, oh, he's my brother. He's like, nothing's gonna happen. And it's like, dude, what would you do if
You
there was
think that
$20 million?
until
What would you do if there was $20 million put in front of you? Like, be scrolling through Amazon. Oops, my finger slipped. Let me just buy that. Oops, my finger slipped.
And that's the
Like,
hard thing is like when you know that like those little micro transactions aren't going to be noticed until someone audits it and tries to look at it in the bigger picture. But you can, you kind of feel like, yeah, you can get away with those little micro trans. Now, listen, I don't think $4.5 million is the micro transaction. That's a pretty big one.
Yeah, but when you're Shohei making 20 to however much he's making, I mean, it's
well, yeah, and that's the thing. All that contract got deferred. So who do you know? Okay, who do you know that? Think of anyone that you might know that likes to gamble on sports. Okay, if they had $700 million coming to them and they had a money problem where they were trying to wire transfer different, let's say there were $4.5 million in the hole with an illegal bookmaker, would they want to defer $680 million of a $700 million contract? Like that's what leads me to believe maybe Shohei does not have a gambling problem, doesn't have a money problem. He's got all the money in the world coming in from sponsorships, especially all the sponsorships he has back home in Japan, right? Like, I don't think he has a money problem. He doesn't seem like a person who is, unintelligent. I mean, I think he's probably a lot more intelligent than some of us know, really. I think he fully speaks English and is smart enough to say, I don't speak English. You know what I mean? Like, I mean,
I feel you, but I mean, like you talked about, like, I don't, like you said, like, especially if someone has 4.5 million, right? Why would they be willing to take $2 million over the next 10 years of their $700 million contract? Do you think of that? That would take you 3 years to pay off that $4.5 million gambling debt.
Yeah.
Like if that bookmaker was like, okay, I want $4.5 million of your next paycheck. Well, then Shohei's like, well, I only get $2 million a year for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Then
Listen,
what do you do?
Can I ask you a question real quick too?
No.
This could be something totally unrelated. Oh, okay. I won't ask.
You can.
I'm kidding. I just felt sad. Okay, so the Seoul series, right? Which they played the 2 games in Seoul, South Korea. The night of the first game, I think, or the day of the first game, there was a bomb threat.
I saw that.
Specifically aimed at Shohei Ohtani. Is that A, Michael Boyer trying to get his $4.5 million? B, Ippei Matsuhara going, my world's about to fall down. Let's try to get out of here. Let's try to create a diversion and something will happen, right? Maybe this will look weird and I can, just panicking. What was that about? Do you think that's a total coincidence or do you think the two things are related in some way?
I mean, obviously it's
tough
probably
one, right?
going to get investigated. Obviously it's going to get investigated.
Yeah.
And then
what is it? I don't know. I mean, they deemed it to not be a threat, so I don't know. But I'm sure the federal government will do something that we don't know about behind the scenes to look into it to see if it's
but like, it'll be just like it is with a school. They'll go back and they'll look at that phone call and they'll trace the IP address. If it comes from Florida, then could be Michael Boyer, however you pronounce his name.
Yeah.
But if it comes from India or one of these places, then it's a scam. But
if it comes from Ippei Matsuhara's phone, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I don't know.
But like I probably something to joke about, but you see the meme about Yoshinobu Yamamoto, his start?
No.
So he had a horrendous first start in the big leagues,
bad.
Horrendous. And somebody's like, he did it so then Shohei's 5.5 over would hit.
Well, yeah. Well, he's bringing his buddies over. Hey, we can do this. Like, come on, we'll make money together. That's hilarious.
And I was
We'll go
like,
sign
dude,
with
I was
the
like,
Dodgers. They have unlimited cash. Like they can support us. We'll be fine.
I was like, dude, that's funny. But like the clip that intrigues me, right, is like it didn't seem like the Dodgers just fired him out of the blue, right? Obviously, well, to us it did. Obviously, to us it did.
Yeah.
But
To us, it
like
did.
if you see the clip though, you see Shohei go over and talk to him, and it doesn't really seem like they're happy or like they're enjoying the game like they normally always did. It kind of seemed like they were kind of like saying like their farewells to each other, and it's like
there were administrative things going on in the background. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, it's kind of like they knew before we knew. Yeah. And it's kind of like they told him like, hey, Ipe, like this is your last game. Like, we're getting ready tomorrow, because this came up. And
well, listen, they definitely knew before we knew. They definitely.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But
the federal government, I'm sure. What do you think the first phone call is there? Do you think the FBI calls the Dodgers ownership and says anything? What do they do? What do you do?
I feel like
the federal government doesn't know anybody to call, right? They don't have to call anybody.
No, but if the federal government, if the FBI just shows up at the Dodgers clubhouse, hey, can we see Ipe? Like, where's it? Like, why are you guys
here? Do they
here?
call the MLB league office there? Do they call like Tony Clark and say, hey, like what?
I feel like you'd have to, right? Because I mean, the MLB has to know about it. It's
gambling.
I
mean, you have to let someone know. Yeah, you have to let the governing body know that especially a guy with as much clout as Shohei. Like, hey, this guy's under investigation. Like, he popped up on our radar, and we have a problem.
Do you think that? Question for you. As this investigation goes on, do you think it could lead to Shohei being suspended any games?
Eventually, like I said, there's enough smoke to lead me to believe that there's at least enough fire that they're going to find something suspicious, and it may clear out. Or it may check out clear. I have no idea. I don't know. It's so hard to say, and I don't want to speculate. But typically in these cases, when there's so much smoke, there's fire somewhere, right? Even if it's just Shohei admitting to illegally wiring the money to the bookie because Matsuhara was in trouble or whatever. That's still a federal offense. I mean, that's still could be punishable by who knows what. I don't know. I don't have the exact terms on that, but it's a federal offense.
And I feel like and for sure. I mean, we've seen it. One of the greatest players ever, Pete Rose, not in the Hall of Fame because he bet on games.
Yep.
And if it turns out, like you said, even if Shohei was like, hey, yeah, I gave this guy $4.5 million, but it was to help my friend, pay off his debt.
Yeah.
That's illegal. If he gets suspended, I could truly see Shohei Ohtani asking for a buyout and going back to playing baseball in Japan.
Yeah.
And that'd be the last year.
If he's even, what if he's, what if he's so shamed, that, I don't know, like, is he going to be allowed to play in Japan anymore? Are they going to be ashamed of him? I have no idea.
Good point. I mean, all right.
Who do you pick? I mean, you got to pick someone's side in this, right? You got to pick Matsuhara or Ohtani. You got to pick.
I think, obviously, like you said, we won't know more until we hear, like, both sides, because we haven't heard Ipe talk on it, have we?
Not really much. I mean, he's said that a couple of things. I mean, he came out with the initial statement that, basically Ohtani, did this to help protect him or whatever. He had a gambling debt, and then the Dodgers, and Ohtani's people said, no, that's not what happened. No, sir, we didn't do that. No one did that. And then they said, wait a minute, we did even less than we said we did before. So we didn't want to. So it got crazy. Like I said, I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea where we are right now.
Like, like we've talked about before, situations like this, like you have to be, especially, us as like podcast hosts and, talking about sports, like we have to be extremely careful because if we say the wrong thing, not only can our show get taken down, but, we can basically get blacklisted by YouTube and Google.
Yeah. I don't want to condemn anybody for being guilty of something they're not guilty of. It just, it looks fishy,
Yeah, we can't just go out and start pointing fingers like, oh, he did it. I know he did it.
I would never do that. And listen, I love Shohei Ohtani, but if he did this, if he was involved in this, then he absolutely needs to be suspended or banned. I mean, just like anybody else would be.
Like, like I said, the greatest hitter in baseball, Pete Rose, is not in the Hall of Fame because he bet on games.
Yep.
If it turns out that Shohei even wired this money or did place bets on games, you have to.
If people think for a minute that these games are fixed, and people are already headed that way with the NFL, talking about the script or whatever.
They are.
But,
you don't think
people are not going to watch anymore because if this becomes entertainment, not a true sport, you lose your market in a league. Listen, with a league, especially with Major League Baseball, that already has a problem with visibility, not invisibility, but with marketability and everything
No, I
else.
agree. Yeah.
They don't need this. They don't need the highest paid, biggest name in baseball in 25 years to go down and be banned for life, right? 5 weeks
Yep.
after signing, not 5 weeks after signing, but a couple of months after signing the biggest contract in the history of baseball.
Yep,
Could you
I feel
imagine
you.
how bad for the sport, just the PR blow? I mean, it'd be awful.
It'd be terrible. I mean, it like you said. I mean, like yeah, like Shohei is one of my favorite players, in baseball today.
Yeah.
We've never seen a guy that not only has as much raw talent, or not raw talent, but raw power at the plate. He can hit for average, he can hit for power, he can
Yeah.
hit for contact, but he can also pitch. Like we've never like the last great guy that did that was Babe Ruth, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't alive when Babe Ruth played.
I was
Like
barely. Yeah, I was barely. No, I wasn't alive. Yeah.
like
No.
yeah. And now
we
there's
haven't.
reports
You and I
saying,
haven't seen this. We haven't seen this.
no, and now there's reports saying that Ohtani might not pitch again because of his elbow injury. If he doesn't, like okay, like yeah, I mean, like you don't want to hurt your. He had I don't know if you read into his Tommy John surgery, but it was actually it was considered Tommy John, but it was worse than Tommy John.
Okay.
So
More than the UCL.
Yeah, so like obviously with your fingers, right? Obviously your UCL is down here, right?
Mm-hmm.
All 5 of your fingers attached to your UCL.
Yeah.
Usually when you get Tommy John, you just tear your UCL.
Yeah.
His was kind of like Big Ben's injury. He tore the ligaments that connect to his fingers off the UCL, and he tore the UCL as well.
Yeah.
So they're saying that he might never ever be the same again. And now I'm hearing reports.
Hard when you have 2 points of stress in there now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's yeah.
And like I mean, we saw it with Big Ben in football, right? Like his arm strength was never the same.
Nope.
He went from being a guy that could go out there and sling the thing, like he could sling that ball all over the field. And end of his career, he was like Drew Brees. He could barely throw the ball 30 yards.
Yeah, they went to a West Coast offense with the guy who couldn't run. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And, it's, I hope for Shohei, I hope he's able to get back to pitching because, man, is he a joy to watch pitching. He is.
Well, and I think he loses some of the luster, and suddenly I don't think he's worth $700 million if he never pitches again.
I completely agree with you. I think the reason why
from a marketing standpoint, he sure is. He definitely is. He's the face of baseball. He's one of the faces of baseball.
I think he is the face of baseball. Actually, I still give it to Mike Trout, but
that's fair. And you could argue that Ronald Acuna Jr. is kind of coming into that.
I think my 3 faces of baseball, and you can go either way. I think it's Ohtani, Trout, and Acuna. People say, well, Trout's been hurt the last couple of years, but if you look at it, Trout is arguably the greatest player and hitter we've ever seen of my generation. He has he's never in the playoffs, but it's his fault. He chose to sign that 13-year deal with the Angels. He could have very well up and left and went to the Los Angeles as well.
There are other guys too that could be like this, and it's we always think of like everybody always wants it to be like the wholesome American boy, and it doesn't have to be that. Like look at Shohei Ohtani. Nope. He barely speaks English. Another guy, if he played in a bigger market, that I think could be absolutely known as one of the faces of baseball would be Jose Ramirez. I mean, if Jose Ramirez,
I completely agree with you. Jose Ramirez,
if he was the third baseman for the Yankees or the Dodgers or the Cubs, I mean, everybody knows Jose Ramirez, but he would be so much more elevated as a superstar.
Agreed. Agreed.
He's got the personality for it. He's that guy. You know what I mean?
Yep. And I mean, you as a Braves fan, right? Like, would you consider the Braves as a small market team?
They're like a mid-market team. They've got a little bit more backing now. Yeah. Because listen, you know what they did? They built their own facility, right? They went out to Cobb County. They bought their own land. They were the first team to do this. They built their stadium. They built hotels. They built restaurants. They built concert venues. They put parking in around it, and they said, we're going to bring in all this money. We're not going to pay the city of Atlanta to lease a stadium and then let the city of Atlanta own all the parking lots and restaurant and everything around. It was smart, right? I mean, it's unfortunate. It's a little bit of a commute out of Atlanta now. It's about a 20-minute drive. Traffic is probably a little bit easier than, that congestion that you get with downtown Atlanta. But yeah, they started putting their own money, 7-8 years ago, and it's worked out really well.
And a big part of that now is Ronald Acuna. Like they went out and they got their face of their franchise and Ronald Acuna. Like, it took, like think about the Braves, right? You had two like franchise players that were back to back. Heck, they played with each other for a couple of years. Freddie Freeman and Ronald Acuna. Like like don't get me wrong, Freeman
it was the same thing with Chipper Jones and Andrew Jones. It was like,
it was Freeman though, like Freeman embodied the Atlanta Braves. Loved him. He loved everything about him. He wanted to retire as a Brave, and stuff like that. And I've said this to people before. I still see Freddie Freeman retiring as a Brave.
Yeah,
I
think he'd be a guy that would come back and sign a 1-year contract to play in Atlanta again.
That's exactly what I was going to say. His final year, when he says this is my final year, all said and done.
When he goes in, he's going to wear a Braves hat, right? Like in Cooperstown. Like,
I feel like he has to, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, like if the Guardians were to go out of their way, and build like their own stadium, like the Braves did, and build their own parking lot, restaurant, hotel, stuff like that, I think Jose would get even more attention because not only now do you have more backing, you can go out and sign better players. You still have the face of your franchise, the cornerstone of your team, with a bunch of young guys like the Braves have, and you're able to go out and compete. And I mean, you know me, I'm a huge baseball guy, right? Like my favorite baseball movie ever is 42 and Moneyball.
There you go.
Right? Moneyball is a great movie because it's about, small market team winning games, being unconventional.
Billy Beane, man. Yeah.
Yep. Getting on base. And what did the Guardians do when they faced the Yankees? Basically Moneyball. They got on base.
Yep.
But if you go out and you were to get this Guardians team, like the talent that some of these other teams have, dude, we would run through the American League.
It's too bad that the Guardians don't have what do I want to say? I want to be careful how I say it. An ownership team that's more spirited as far as like financial backing, because I don't know what's stopping the Guardians from being the Braves. Listen, the Guardians are right there. They develop talent. They identify and develop talent with maybe the best of the best in the major leagues. They're right there with Tampa. They're right there with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
They just can't keep it. They can't keep it in Cleveland. They can't keep it in the organization. And I mean, they've got a beautiful facility. The stadium is beautiful. It's beautiful. I'm sorry. I mean, I know it's local, whatever. It's a beautiful stadium. I know it's a little bit older now, considering, this, when I was a kid, this age of a stadium wouldn't have been considered old, but now this is old. It's whatever, but they've got the perfect setup. I mean, they're in an awful, awful division. This division cannot stop tripping over themselves.
No, it's
awful.
We could, I feel like if there's going to be a year that a team with a losing record gets in for a division, it'll be this year. And
the Guardians will win this thing 80 and 82. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could happen. It could definitely happen, right?
And like you said,
you won't see a wild card team from the Central this year.
No,
I mean,
definitely not. Like you said,
Detroit could be better, but not good.
Yeah, like you said, us not being able to keep talent. You look at what Jose signed for with that free agent extension, a 7-year, $124 million, right? Like you're telling me that he couldn't have gotten more from the Dodgers, the Yankees. He definitely could have, by far.
Sure, he could have. Probably over $200 million. Yeah.
He turned down multiple, from what I saw, I don't know if it's true, and I didn't read into it because I don't care because he signed with the Guardians, so I'm happy.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't matter what could have been. Yeah.
Yeah. But from what I heard is he turned down multiple $250 to $300 million contracts to stay with the Guardians for $124 million.
He loves it here. He's comfortable here.
If that's a guy that you don't want to say, okay, hey, I want to build around that guy. Let's go win a World Series.
Yeah.
You had the chance to with Lindor, and you lowballed him. You offered him $100 million.
Yeah.
Knowing
what you know now though about Lindor, I mean, I still think the Guardians won that trade. Would you want him here still?
Yes, because we don't have a shortstop.
Okay, that's fine. That's fair. I guess I get that. But
here's the thing.
It's not like he's been. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He's had his best seasons of his career hitting hitting in front of Jose Ramirez. Whenever he was playing well, Jose was playing well. Whenever he was in a slump, Jose was in a slump. It was kind of like they were like a magnet.
Yeah.
Like Jose goes out there and crushes a homer, Lindor comes out and crushes a homer. Jose grounds out, Lindor grounds out. It was like they were like in sync with each other. It's like they were like, it was like somebody was controlling them in like a video game. Like, hey, you're gonna hit a home run, you're gonna hit a home run, and then you're both gonna ground out.
It's almost worth as ownership. It's almost worth paying those guys more. When you've got 2 or 3 guys on your roster that seem to push each other and make the whole team go, you want to keep those guys there in the core, right? Usually.
I mean, Braves done it with Ronald Acuna.
Yeah, exactly. And well,
Ozzie
and listen,
Albies.
I know there are already rumblings about him wanting his contract renegotiated. And listen, he deserves to get paid. I don't know what's going to happen there. But baseball is not really set up so that, you can opt out of a contract, before you have an opt out. So,
Yeah.
um,
One thing I want to talk about one thing I want to say about the Braves though is how they got Ozzie Albies for what was it? 5 years, 37 years, 35 million.
yeah, these guys are happy. They're just happy.
Like,
And listen, a lot of it was Ron Washington. And I think Wash leaving the Braves is going to have a big impact.
yeah. Dude,
Might
Ron
have a
Washington's my
bigger
favorite
impact.
coach.
It might have a bigger negative impact on the Braves, just from a psychological standpoint. I know those infielders. He was their crutch. I mean, he was like the father figure. He was always out there. He was out there doing drills with them. He's just a great guy.
He
Would
turned
teach
Austin
them
Riley
like
into a
not
Gold
teach them.
Glover.
Oh yeah, and would just like remind them of like the mental side of the game and like
and the fundamentals.
Yeah. And he's gonna be such a good influence on this Angels organization.
He went to the Angels, didn't he?
He's managing the Angels now. Yeah. Listen, I don't think the Angels are going to come out of the woodwork and win the West or anything, but I bet you see an improvement. I bet you see a marked improvement from them.
I do too.
So I hope so. For my cousin Nate, man, I hope you see an improvement. I want to see the Angels win again.
Like I said, towards the end of my baseball career, I was a center fielder, right? And I looked up to Mike Trout. People say who's the best player in baseball. Still to this day, I mean, it's starting to get a little bit more closer and hairier on who I pick.
Yeah,
it's still Mike Trout.
Yeah, I get it.
His last fully healthy season, he hit 340 with 40 home runs, and he only played 100 games.
And the defense too. I mean, the defense is what's ridiculous. He plays center field like he's a strong safety. I mean, it's
like his body size should be like a first baseman.
Right.
Like it's nuts what he does. I mean, he's starting to get hurt more. Now he has that chronic back issue. I don't know if you heard about that.
Yeah.
It's going to cause him games
for a guy who torques and twists like that for a living. That's tough.
But I've even heard that he said he'd be willing to not play as many games in the field and just DH. Yeah. And that's tough because, like you said, his defense is incredible.
Yep.
Like he's but if there's anybody that I think can get that team going, it's Ron Washington.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope he does. Listen, opening day is this week, Ben. Opening day is Thursday. Dude, I'm so excited. I'm so excited about it.
Oh, dude, me too. I can't wait.
Let's get through the first week of the season or the first half week of the season or whatever. And on next week's show, let's pick our way too early division winners. Let's just see what's going on. We'll see if Jordan Montgomery has a home yet. He still doesn't have a team. We're 3 days away from 1 day away now from opening day. And Jordan Montgomery still doesn't have a place to pitch. So
since the last time we talked about baseball, Blake Snell did sign.
Yeah, he did sign with the Giants.
The Giants, yeah.
That was confusing. 2 years, $62 million. That was weird for me.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, though, I think again, this will be a placeholder. He'll be there for 2 years, then he'll go to.
The Giants have done it. They picked a weird time to kind of pick their window to go all in because I think they still have to deal. Obviously, they have to deal with the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks, so I think are a better team than. I think both of those are better teams than the. I don't know what the Giants are doing. Maybe they're just going for that wild card spot. I guess I don't know. We'll see.
Just think if the Giants, having Aaron Judge for what was it, 4 hours and Carlos Correa for 40 minutes. Just think if that was true, you'd have.
Hey, the Twins had Jesse Chavez for about 2 hours this week. Maybe that'll work out for him. Supposedly, until he signed back with the Braves again for like the 5th time. So,
dude, he keeps bouncing around teams, but
unreal.
Think about what the Giants team could have been.
Yeah,
Aaron Judge, Logan Webb, Carlos Correa, Blake Snell.
Wow,
that team is disgusting.
Yeah, you can't blame the front office for what they are. You can't blame them for not trying because they tried to put something together.
They did, but
So next week we'll talk about it. Hopefully we'll know a little bit more about the Shohei Ohtani, Ippei Mitsuhara scandal. Mitsuhara? Did I say his name right? I don't know. Was I saying it wrong the whole show?
I just call him Ippei.
Yeah, Ippei the translator. Listen, hopefully we'll know a little bit more, like I said, next week. We're not going to, it's not like the federal government's going to go, hey, this is where we are in the investigation this week. This is what we've got. Like, we're not going to hear anything until probably it's done, but we'll hear little things leak out here and there. Next week on the show, also, like I said, we'll do our way, way, way too early division winners. And we can baseball's easy enough. We can go right through the playoffs. We can pick World Series winner if you want to next week. That sound good?
I'm down. Yeah, let's
do it. All right, let's do it. That's it for us this week on the formerly known as the baseball show with no name. We're now the sports show with no name. But we have names. We're Ben Bales and Chad Bryan, and we appreciate you watching. Ben, thanks for talking sports with me for an hour, man. I appreciate it.
Of course, dude. I have a blast doing it.
I had a blast as well, man. I look forward to next week already. And
Me as well.
I'll see you next week, buddy. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.
Yeah. Peace.